So why is it everyone's turning into a zombie surrounding Lori Vallow? An autistic 7-year-old boy, JJ Vallow, was just put into a shallow ground. We believe that grave might have been dug out sometime between September 21st through 23rd of 2019 in Chad's backyard. And the creepy thing about that is his family was living in that home, his wife, his son, and he had children that lived just across the street. Many of you following this case are asking why, and we're going to talk about that today. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer, where we are going to talk about that and more today. We're covering the timeline of Light Beyond the Grave, which is covering the story about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, the Doomsday Mom, and the cult they carried. If you're not familiar with the story, make sure that you stop here and go back to the first part of the series. So again, many of us that have followed this case for the last 6 years are still looking for answers. Why did Lori and Chad unalive her own children, Tylee and JJ? And let me tell you, we've learned a lot about the story. But the one thing we haven't learned is out of their mouths why they did what they did. And since Lori and Chad refuse to talk, and they continue to smirk at justice, we will take this evidence, piece it together, and find the answers ourselves. One of the first things that we learned was Lori Vallow wanted a completely different lifestyle than the one she was living. That new lifestyle that she was seeking wouldn't include her family, her husband, her children, her mom, her dad, not anyone. It only included Lori. She deemed her children, JJ and Tylee, zombies, and we know Charles, her husband at the time, was unalive because he was a zombie named Ned. Why did Charles become a zombie? Well, everyone could easily figure that one out. Charles Vallow had $1 million life insurance policy, which Lori thought would go to her. However, instead of Lori getting that big lump sum of money, his sister, Kay Woodcock, received it. We also learned that both Chad and Lori were not happy campers once they found out that Kay received the money. They were so upset by that they deemed Kay Woodcock a zombie named Rhonda. Basically, it was an excuse to erase anyone that they found obstacles in their lives. They were holding secret ceremonies in order to do so. If we look back at the text between Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, they speak about Kay and how they had planned to lower her numbers, plotting ways, creating excuses to rank her down, just like they did Charles Vallow, JJ, and Tylee. Again, if you've been following this story, you know this is something they do to all of the people in their circle that they deem zombies. It is a mark of death, a serial killer's signature, their own weird autograph. These ranking systems made it a lot easier for investigators to follow the breadcrumbs. Around this part of the timeline, Kay Woodcock's world was cracking wider every single day. And after her brother was shot and murdered, she was clinging on to any bit of hope, any scraps of evidence she could to bring out the truth. What she was going to find was going to be hard. Kay knew that it was murder. And Kay knew that she was standing up against a snake in her Sunday's best, a seductress who could cry on cue, then cash in a check without ever looking back. Victim 1 minute, killer the next. To be truthful, Lori had the knack of making people feel this pity for her. She also had the ability to shine as a brilliant mom, at least to the people surrounding her. This was her superpower. In other words, Lori can make murder look like love. And all of these people disappearing and dying around this group of people, well, Lori made it out to be a murder as mercy or murder as love. And around this time, you have to wonder, were the feds Lori's puppets? By this time, Kay had to be learning quickly what she was dealing with, and she didn't give up. She was determined to pick up where her brother Charles left off. This means Kay was going back through her old texts, things Charles had said that she might have felt she might have overlooked something, and maybe there might be some kind of important piece to the puzzle that could help feds understand how dangerous Lori Vallow was. Kay knew it wasn't going to be easy because she knows that picking up where her brother left off, knowing who Lori is and who she can be, and the possibility that, well, Lori could paint her as the crazy one and Lori as the sane one. That's something Lori did during the whole year. Starting especially in January of 2019, Charles Vallow was reaching out to police and begging for them to get his wife help, but she painted Charles as crazy. She wasn't the only one doing it. It was Lori Vallow's entire family almost. And you got to remember, Kay's putting on her gloves right now. She's getting ready for the biggest fight of her life. And the thing is she doesn't know that she's already too late for a few people. Meanwhile, Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother and confidant, protective angel, after murdering a 7-year-old, he is tinting windows for the Jeep, loading his gun, folding the duct tape. They're moving on very quickly to their next target, the next victim. And she's out of the loop here. She has no idea how fast time is sprinting against her. So Kay Woodcock is just now putting together things while Alex Cox, well, he's wiping off fingerprints from the gun. In fact, around this time, Lori, Alex, and Chad and their group, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Boudreau, were ahead of the investigators. While they're still trying to catch up, Alex Cox is at Walmart September 25th, using cash to buy burner phones. And if we take a moment to look back, both Alex Cox and Lori Vallow appeared disturbingly eager to get rid of the two children first. And what's shocking to me about this story is how there was a pack of monsters all coming from the same family. This is very rare to see. It was obvious they understood each other without having to say a word, and the entire Cox family drank the same Kool-Aid. But here's the thing. One family member, Adam Cox, and his son, Zach, well, they were actually noticing what was really happening. That there was a problem with Lori and that she was a liar. We learned in series before this that Lori and Alex, they even deemed Adam a zombie, their own brother. Alex Cox begins practicing shooting. He's lining his scope on his sister's command. So looking at the evidence that they presented, there really wasn't much evidence on Chad Daybell. You know, he was basically just helping Lori do these plans. Evidence shows that he was following Lori like a lost puppy. He was giving up everything and everyone to bulldoze a spot for Lori in his life. Chad spits out the numbers. He was over this ranking system, no doubt. But we've seen texts where he would rank somebody one number and Lori would not be happy with that and encourage it to be something different. And he did that with no problem. We also learned that Chad had done a lot of ranking in his lifetime, and he'd done it with his wife, Tammy, even possibly his children. But the problem is, these ranking systems only grew this crazy after meeting Lori. We learned that Chad Daybell always wanted to control everyone and make them do as he pleased. But he never had the guts to carry out these demands. at least past whispers behind closed doors and rumors in Bishop's office. But in this part of the timeline, Chad is more than involved. We don't know how Chad's property come into play. Did he offer the property or did Lori say, well, let's do it? We do know that his property was a burial site. And we know he was there, but was he getting his hands dirty? Well, the answer seems to be yes. Chad was wearing yard working clothes, remember, while burning debris and human remains in his yard after Alex Cox left. At least Alex Cox's phone service showed that Alex Cox had left Chad's property that day. Around the same time, Chad has began to disconnect from people, making this unaliving people easy and comfortable for him. In fact, he seemed to start enjoying it. Chad Daybell was now crossing the line of no return. There's no clues that he ever started looking back about this point on. He was either all in or he wasn't. There was no in between. This is the most important part of the timeline, at least for Chad Daybell. His future, which was focused once on him and his family, has now become an obstacle and everything has changed. The new future is with his lover, Lori Vallow. So all those years of planning light cities and building the New Jerusalem in Salem, Idaho, near his property, is slowly being erased. Chad now had new directions to go and new fantasies to follow. And he really had to come to terms with the fact that no longer would his children be the main characters in this fantasy. From now on, it was him and Lori that were the stars, and every part of the world would revolve around them. And Chad Daybell was smart enough not to raise the red flags to or in front of his children. At least not yet. His children played a new important role. Chad needed those children to stand up for his lies, his manipulation, and his crimes. With so many people disappearing, he had to have someone that could be a checkup for him. This is because his wife was now the next person in line behind others or along beside others that was deemed a zombie and were targeted for murder. And he knew that his kids could make or break him. It seemed also that Chad had enough faith he could trust or control his children. At this point, like I said, there was no return. He was stuck with these ideas, these plans, and they were moving forward. Would Chad Daybell's children see through the smoke? Right now, they have no idea the smoke is even speeding their direction. And during this time, Chad's children and his wife, they are going on living their lives. They have no idea that they're walking on this piece of property where two people's lives were taken and they were buried just in very shallow graves, just underneath their feet. This gives you an idea of Chad Daybell's state of mind here and how he feels about his children and his wife. It also tells you that Chad understood that his kids and wife would never suspect Chad of doing anything like this, making it easy for Chad, Alex, and Lori to take everyone down one by one. So at this point in the timeline, there have been 3 people they found alive. Charles Vallow, Lori Vallow's 4th husband, Tylee Ryan, Lori Vallow's daughter, J.J. Vallow, Lori Vallow's adopted son. Lori at this point is focusing more on her niece, Melanie Boudreaux. She has Chad Daybell focusing on Tammy because Lori's very impatient. She's tired of being alone. She doesn't want to be alone anymore, and she's tired of seeing Chad go back home to a woman that wasn't her. So we know that Brandon Boudreaux, Melanie Boudreaux's husband, well, ex-husband, is now ranked a zombie. We know that Tammy Daybell is now ranked a zombie. But at this part of the timeline, you don't know who's going to be the first that they target. And how is it that they're so blatantly getting rid of all these people without thinking there's going to be others who are going to ask questions that are going to look for them? Well, if you ask too many questions, like Lori's brother Adam Cox, well, you'll be deemed a zombie too. So it seems that the way that they see it, and this is me speculating, is if you turn on them, well, you're the next one that's going to be gone, so you can't talk. You got to remember, Lori Vallow had a few friends that she felt safe to confide in, and one of those people being April Raymond. According to April, she said when Lori come to see her in Hawaii, she told her that part of her mission while here on Earth was to eliminate the darkness, the demonic, and the evil. And April Raymond, if you remember, said that Lori told her that her husband at the time, who was alive at the time, Charles Vallow, was one of the evils. And the way that Lori convinced people around her, because she believed that these people trusted in her that much, that she could be so open, she told April that Charles was already dead. And so all these victims, she's claiming that they're already dead and that their bodies have been taken over by evil spirits and demons. This is how they justify unaliving everyone in this case. So from here on, they continue doing these circles. Melanie Gibb told investigators a year after all this went down quite a bit of useful information, and we're going to go over that. So they referred to these circles as casting circles, and they each had their gift. So Lima was able to move the earth. Don't take my word for it. Let's listen to what Melanie says.
What was your gift that brought you into that circle? What was your gift? Because each person's circle had a gift.
Nobody really had a gift until they stepped. It seems like they had a gift all of a sudden when they stepped into the circles. That makes sense. Like there was no gift outside of it except for Sulema. Sulema seemed to be the one that had the gift of moving the earth because she seemed the visionary stuff. She could see. So she was the only one I knew of that had that kind of gift.
Do you remember Lori giving anybody assignments? Okay, you be water, you be fire.
Yeah, a little bit. She started to learn it more, but that probably backed off after a while because she stopped. You know, like I said, she got rid of some people in the group. So then it kind of just branched off to her and Lori would do a lot of it on their own in the temple. And I'd come and see them in the temple later. I was like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, we just were talking about how to, do this and da-da-da-da.
Sulema, Lori?
What?
Who? Lori and who?
Sulema. So they'd be in the temple doing it sometimes. And they would just do it like they'd sit beside each other and just hold hands or something like that. Like nobody could really tell what they're doing. And they would talk about, I see them talking and then they would just close their eyes and then think that they could do something like leave their bodies, And
so here's another thing that they were doing. They believed that they could do astral projection. Remember that. That's very important for what we're going to learn on September 25th. They had the ability to leave their bodies and travel to other places.
Weird stuff like that. Like it happens to people. I don't know. I've never had those experiences. But anyway, so somebody would do something about water and I can't remember the words. They were so different. Sorry, I'm trying. Crystals or whatever, and I'm trying to remember Nicole and Christina. Like, what was that?
That's okay. So,
I don't really remember.
So you guys go around the circle. Each person says their part, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes back to Lori.
Most likely.
And how does Lori close it? Like, how do you guys get done with the casting?
She would invite the spirit to come out of the body, and I think a few times, if I remember now, it's so long since I thought about this. Sulema, they would try to, what's the right word, seal it up or something like that. Seal it.
Like sealing a blessing?
Just sealing, yeah. Like try to seal it where they that light energy that was going to them that would cause that evil spirit go, okay, I'm going to leave now. So they were trying to invite it to leave now.
Okay, so if you listen to her, you can hear Melanie Gibb trying to pretend that she didn't understand what she was talking about, but it was more than clear that she was dumbing herself down so that she didn't look guilty. Why would somebody want to do that if they're innocent? Well, they're most likely guilty of something.
And she just talked to, I think at the end she would just try to seal that up and try to think she had the power to talk it out of leaving the body.
And that's something you believed in at the time?
I kind of believed in it. I didn't 100%. It's hard to 100% believe in anything that's not true. So at the time, I thought, well, I don't know if this is effective or not, but it seems that's the direction she's going because she doesn't know what to do about this evil spirit in the body. I don't know if it's working or not because she's saying one time it's here and then I said, Chad, all the body left. So when the first entity first left, Ned, got really weird after that. Actually, she called Chad. She's like, "Did we get the body? We had her. Did we get the spirit out?" Because he would be the one that deemed it, and he'd say, "Yes, it left." And then, well, where is it? And then, what is his body dead? Because they thought maybe his body would drop dead, which never happened. So she thought that Charles was dead.
It was easy to figure out that a lot of Melanie Gibb's interviews, she's so full of it. How investigators were able to tolerate it and pretend like they believed her, I don't know. But Melanie Gibb could tell us much, much more, but she hasn't. And why would she not? Well, she's more worried about herself than anyone else. Melanie Gibb does say that Lori Vallow around this time was starting to sink her hooks into Melanie Boudreaux, her niece. And this is right after she didn't get that $1 million when Charles was murdered. Melanie Gibb also shared the thought that Lori Vallow thought she was getting messages from heaven before she ever met Melanie Gibb or Chad Daybell.
Evil spirits around you. So I remember one time she told me when she was in Hawaii before I ever met her, so this was when she was living there, she recalled a moment. She goes, I remember, Melanie, I woke up, an angel woke me up and said, you need to email Julie Rowe and tell her that she's a true servant. And I was thinking, wow, maybe Julie, because I didn't think Lori was lying to me. I thought she was really enlightened. And anyway, she believed in this. And anyway, she said she finally figured, she said, I can't even email or I don't do Facebook. She's like, I just know that Moroni, she must have told me about Moroni, or he was the savior. I know that he's called me to be part of that 144,000 to help other women. I am to gather other women, something like that, and help them be part of the gathering kind of thing. Okay. So her and I go to the temple. We go to the Phoenix Temple because I remember the Gilbert Temple was closed. So we're going in, and this is, if you're LDS, you're going to be surprised by this. This is where the deception really began. I go into the temple, and I'm going in the dressing room. We're getting our white clothes on, and she is in the dressing stall. And I come out, and I stand behind. They have an arch window in the Phoenix Temple, right in the women's room. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, I get this like heat all over my head, and I'm like, what's that? So I said, Lori. She comes out. I said, feel my head. And she goes, oh, it's happening. And I was like, yeah, it's really hot on top of it. I didn't have a fever. Nowhere else on my body was hot. And it wasn't because the sun was coming through. It was really like this heat. It lasted for, I don't know, like a minute or two.
Lori uses that moment that Melanie shows her as a opportunity to ordain Melanie. Ordain her for what? Well, the gathering. 144,000.
You know, I'm thinking that's good. And so anyway, we go into a couple of different rooms. I don't want to share too much because it's a temple. Right. But anyway, she thinks that she has the power to ordain me at that point. To be part of this 144,000.
Did she say she got the keys to ordain you?
Yeah. From the Lord himself. And from Moroni. Herself in the temple. In the initiatories, in a certain location in the initiatories. And the interesting thing, I told this to Rob, The same place that Sue Lemon said she saw the Lord was the same place he said. And I was like, how did that happen where she said the same place? And he goes, well, Melanie, people can have some psychological word. I don't remember what he called it. So some psychological word that she had this experience in there. And I was like, well, I never had anything like that. So
Now, something we have noticed is how Lori likes to mimic other people's stories, Julie Rowe, and especially Chad Daybell. She will take their stories and apply it to her life, and she will not have a second thought. It instantly is part of her life from then on. So do you think Lori believes this, or do you think she's manipulating people? Please share it in your comments below. I would really appreciate that because I like reading your thoughts. And also, I'm going to close out right now. And before we do, would you share some of our missing girls on your social media today? I would really appreciate that, and so would they. Just know, guys, I will be back. I'm working on this. I've been actually researching where to go with my channel, and I'm kind of struggling where to go because there's so many channels out there now. I do miss you guys. Love you guys, and make sure that you say hello at least. See you guys soon.